What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Murph's Boston Sports Talk. I am your host, James Murphy, and thank you so much for joining me on Monday's edition of Murph's Boston Sports Talk. It's a little weird to introduce this episode as Monday's episode, although it is Monday's episode. I am just currently recording this part of the episode on Sunday, because the Bruins game just wrapped up. Their series against the Washington Capitals is over, and I kind of just wanted to break it down really quickly, give my initial thoughts, my initial reactions to not only the game, but the series as a whole. And I really wanted to do that raw, fresh off the press, with the game literally concluding 10 minutes ago, maybe? I don't know. I mean, I would say the handshakes were just done 5 minutes ago, so I would assume the game was 5 minutes or so ago. So I didn't want to wait till tomorrow to record this. Although, I'm only going to record this little section, pause, come back tomorrow, and then record the actual episode, of course. Just like with the Super Bowl, just wanted to give my brief, quick reactions, thoughts, and anything really based off of Game 5 and the whole series in general. So, breaking down Game 5, This was a game that saw no goals in the first period, and for a good chunk of the second period, we thought that, this could be another low-scoring game. 1-0, 2-1 winner. But the Bruins were then able to score a goal, break the ice, and then break another goal through to go up 2-0 at the end of 2. It was like bang, bang. Yet again, it was awesome to see that the Bruins offense really kicked it up a notch. I'm not going to lie, besides games 1 and maybe part of 2, the Bruins were really able to get away with their play style. And this is something I really mentioned and emphasized on at the beginning, before the series even started, is that the Capitals want to play their physical play style. They are a very skilled team. They are a very dynamic offense. But the Bruins were really answering the bell when the Capitals want to go hit you, pound you into the board, beat you to a pulp. The Bruins were able to take that beating and really push back with their play style, and I think it really showed. Obviously, they backswept them after losing the first game and then winning the next 4 games. So quickly, we saw goals by David Pastrnak and Patrice Bergeron, who netted 2 of them himself. Bergeron walked away with 2 points. Pastrnak 2 points himself, as he tallied an assist on one of Bergeron's goals. Mike Riley, 2 assists, 2 points. Little sneaky right there. Did not expect that from him, but I think there was a stat they were saying during the game is he's had a point in the past 3 games. I mean, I would have to go back and look at it. I mean, not that it really matters. I mean, actually, no, it does matter. What am I tripping? It does matter, because this guy doesn't score the puck at all. He hasn't had a career goal in his lifetime in the NHL. He's a good, strong, physical defenseman who's going to be at the top of the blue zone, passing the puck into entries, shooting it on the net, hoping that the wingers can get a tip into the net. So that's his play style. So to see him get more assists to double up on the points is definitely a nice sight to see. Bruins as a whole weren't able to get a lot of shots on net. Samsonov was able to only face 19 shots, although he only stopped 16 of them, giving up those 3 goals. But 19 shots and scoring 3 goals, very intriguing, because as we look on the other side for the Capitals, they took 41 shots. Holy shit. 41 shots. Tuukka Rask stopping 40 saves, only giving up 1 goal, and it was that cheeky goal to start the third period, 11 seconds in or whatever. I was still in the bathroom when the period started, and I hear down the hall, only 11 seconds in. It's like, holy shit, thank goodness we had that second goal, am I right? And then the Bruins would go on to score another goal later on, but 41 shots, 40 saves. Tremendous performance by Tuukka Rask. And I'm not going to lie, it seems like Tuukka Rask has his head on right. I mentioned this at the beginning of the series, and I mentioned it ample times. It was one of my keys going into this game, is if Tuukka Rask can have his head on straight, The Bruins should win this series. They should. And it certainly seems like that they could for a lot of periods of time throughout this series, and they ended up doing it. Absolutely tremendous series by Tuukka Rask. I know he gave up that cheeky little goal. What was it? Game 1? Yeah, it was the game that not the Islanders, holy smokes, the Capitals won, at the beginning of the series. That then overtime was a cheeky goal, but he gave up 3 goals in game 1, 3 goals in game 2, 2 in game 3, 1 in 4, and 1 in 5. Games 3, 4, and 5, absolutely spectacular. Obviously, game 3 is the double overtime game. It looked tremendous. Is it bad if I want to kind of give him MVP of the series? I don't think so. In an elimination game for the Capitals, he faced 41 shots, blocking 40 of them. In game 4, let me scroll down, only faced 20 shots, saving 19. And game 3 being the big overtime game, Bruins, he faced 37 shots, stopping 35. Obviously, though, literally playing a period and a half of golden goal. So I don't know the exact numbers off of my head, but, some of those 37, you could argue maybe 10 of them being high leverage shots. So I think without Tuukka Rask, do you win the series? Maybe. I mean, Swayman was very hot. He tremendous goalie during the regular season. I think he could have got it done. I mean, there was often times where the Capitals' offense was so dry. I mean, look at games 4 and 5. They score 1 goal each in those games, and then only 2 in game 3. I don't know if you win this game in the series in 5 games, but the way that the Capitals were playing and the way that you were playing your play style as the Boston Bruins, I think Jeremy Swayman could have stole this series. And I have no idea why I'm talking about this, because in terms of Tuukka Rask, a lot of people don't want him on the team next year because his contract's up. People are sick of him, being a puddle in big games. And I certainly think that game 3 double overtime game was a massive game. Absolutely massive game. Obviously, game 4 and game 5, big games, respectively. I just don't think that you're going to make this cup run, a potential cup run, without Tuukka Rask in the helm. I don't think Jeremy Swayman is ready yet. God forbid anything's to happen to Tuukka Rask. Knock on wood. I think you'd be okay and solid with Jeremy Swayman, but just Tuukka Rask has the playoff experience, the playoff pedigree. He's playing for his next contract, whether it's with the Bruins or not. A lot is riding on the line for Tuukka Rask here in this series as well, just as much as it is for the Boston Bruins. And me personally, I love Tuukka Rask. I think he is an exceptional goalie. He gets a lot of criticism for the poor play that is far and few in between. And you could probably rip that claim apart and be like, oh, he went a 10-game stretch of, giving up this many goals against these kind of teams. It's like, okay, but you can say that about anybody. But like I've mentioned, Tuukka Rask is a top 5, arguably a top 3 goalie at the top of his game. And I think we are seeing the top of his game right now. Right now, as this Capital Series concludes and as we move on to the second round. And I know I kind of slipped on it and I kind of alluded to it, but we do have to wait to see who we're going to play next round. So the Bruins, the 3 seed, knock off the Capitals, the 2 seed, and we await the winner of the 1 versus 4 seed, the Penguins being the 1 and the Islanders being the 4 seed. If we just take a peek, I took a small little peek-see into that series on Friday's episode of Murph's Boston Sports Talk. Well, we have ourselves a series over there. At the time, the Penguins were winning the series 2-1 at the time. And then the Islanders come back to win 4-1 to tie it up. Yesterday being Saturday. As I'm recording it, Saturday is yesterday for me. When you're listening on Monday, it's going to be 2 days ago on Saturday. So pardon me right there. But yes, 2-2 series. Game 5 Monday tonight. For me right now as I'm recording, it says tomorrow. But when this comes out and it's published live to all you wonderful listeners on the audio-only platforms, whether it's Spotify, Google, Amazon, Apple, whatever, or if you're listening on YouTube at Murph's Boston Sports Talk on YouTube, the game will be airing tonight, 7 o'clock puck drop in Pittsburgh. And then Game 6 is going to be Wednesday, May 26th. The time is to be determined. And then, if necessary, Friday, Game 7 in Pittsburgh. Game 6 is in New York. Game 7, if necessary, is Friday, May 28th in Pittsburgh. Who do I want to win this series? Well, to be honest, I don't really know. I'm kind of back and forth because the Bruins played very poorly against the Islanders in the regular season. They were 3-5 against them in the regular season. And all three of those wins came late in the season. I looked it up earlier before I started, but I just want to double check. Because you had like a back-to-back against them. Okay, so Monday, May 10th was final overtime game. That was the second to last game of the season. And then April 15th and April 16th, you won 4-1 and 3-0 respectively. And then the other 5 games, you lost to them. All throughout the regular season, you lost to them before you won those last 3 games against them. Pittsburgh, on the other hand, you are 5-3 against. Now, in retrospect, the Islanders were like, top, 1 seed for a long time. Then the Capitals snuck in there. And then the Penguins ultimately got the number 1 seed because they were incredibly hot, like the last 2.5, 3 weeks of the season. And they absolutely stole the 1 seed from the Islanders, the Capitals. The Bruins even made a bid for it, but they ended up falling short. And then the Islanders just kind of fell off the face of the earth. Not completely, but they just completely slipped and threw away the 1 seed. They finished the season 3-4-3, and the Penguins were 8-2-0. And since I'm here, I'll talk about it. The Capitals 7-2-1 and the Bruins 6-3-1. But 3-4-3 for the Islanders to end the regular season, not good. Absolutely threw away the first or even the second seed for that matter. And then the Penguins finishing 8-2 in the regular season absolutely stole the 1 seed. So who do I want to face? Well, I don't exactly know yet, to be honest to you. Gun to my head, having to answer it, I'm going to say the Islanders. I just think the Penguins have a lot of star power. Obviously, Sidney Crosby. They are the number 1 seed. And although you do pose a good matchup against the Pittsburgh Penguins, I just think they're a very dangerous team, just like the Capitals were entering this series. The Islanders, on the other hand, I don't know if they have that kind of firepower that the Penguins have. The Penguins are a much harder team, like I mentioned, and the Islanders are not. Although you're only 3-5 against the Islanders in the regular season, and you're 5-3 against the Penguins in the regular season, I'm still kind of leaning New York Islanders in this one. Travel distance would be a little shorter, which would be nice for the Bruins, but that is besides the point. Series is 2-2 right now. Game 5 Monday tonight. For you listening in Pittsburgh, I'm definitely going to be tuning in, trying to do my research, scout ahead a little bit, because obviously that series won't be decided tomorrow. For me, tonight for you is I hate this. I should not be recording right now, but I am anyways. And Game 6 will decide one way or another. And then, like I said, Game 7 on Friday, if necessary. I'm really excited that the Bruins will have a few days off here between now and the next series, whether it's between the New York Islanders or the Pittsburgh Penguins. I'm really glad that the Bruins were able to take care of business here in Game 5 and not Bogey, I'm recording right now, buddy. Dog's crying. He wants attention or to do something else. I don't know. But just give me like 2 more minutes. Count in your head. 2 minutes, please. I'm really excited and happy. I am thrilled that the Bruins were able to take care of business in Game 5 in DC, in our nation's capital, to not lose the game, go back to Boston for Game 6, hope to 1 minute, please. Hope to win it there, and then, like I said, things could happen. Then come Game 7, they were able to buckle down. They took this game like they were down 3-1 and not winning 3-1, able to close out their opponent, being the Capitals, to move on and advance. That shows excellent pedigree, determination, focus, and that shows heart. It shows heart because they are serious about this year's title run, this year's cup run, because we've been saying it for a couple years now. the group's getting older. They're phasing out, and they're going to be soon gone. I mean, Zdeno Chara's not on the team anymore. Tuukka Raska's up at the end of this year. David Krejci's up at the end of next year. Bergeron and Marchand aren't getting any younger. So this year is a very important year. I still think that they have a great shot at the Cup. Obviously, it started with this series, and it's going to continue against the next series, whether it's against Pittsburgh or the Islanders. And I'm not even going to bother to look into the other divisions and their playoffs. I'm just going to mention that the Colorado Avalanche were able to clean sweep 4-0 the St. Louis Blues, and they can go pound some sand because I hate the St. Louis Blues for beating us in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals a couple years ago in the Garden. Colorado Avalanche look like a phenomenal team, absolute studs of a team, and they could easily represent the West Division in the conference finals. I still need to figure out how is it Central, East, West, and North, or is it East and North, Central? I'll figure it out. But the Avalanche, thank you for destroying the St. Louis Blues, and hopefully, from a Boston Bruins fan, we do not have to face you in a potential Stanley Cup Finals matchup. But that's going to do it for my Bruins segment. I'm going to end my little post-game afterthought, initial take analysis breakdown, raw go of the series against the Capitals for the Bruins as they beat the Washington Capitals 4-1 in fashion, in elegance, in stride as they make their Stanley Cup playoff run. And although I'm recording on Sunday, you're not going to miss a beat because you're going to catch me recording Monday's episode of Murph's Boston Sports Talk right now. All right, guys, we are going to be transitioning over to the Boston Bruins, and I know that they're not playing until tomorrow, but obviously today being Monday, we do have to talk about them. So come Hump Day's episode of Murph's Boston Sports Talk, we'll be able to kind of break down, react to Game 2, however it may pan out. But quickly, some notables about Game 1. Celtics obviously losing 104-93 to the Brooklyn Nets, going down 1-0 in the series. Honestly, it was a good game overall. The Celtics really were able to kind of take control in the first half or so, but then in the third period, I'm still thinking hockey, holy smokes. In the third quarter, the Nets really pushed and gave the Celtics a really good punch right to the teeth that the Celtics were able to weather for a decent amount of time. I mean, the third quarter was 31-20 in favor of the Nets, so it's not terrible. But it came down to the fourth quarter where the lead eventually vanished and the Brooklyn Nets were able to kind of seize, take control of the game, and ultimately put it away. Just putting some chapstick on it. All right. Jason Tatum, 41 minutes of play time, 22 points, not going to cut it. Just going to be blunt with you. Not going to cut it. 93 total points in this game is also not going to cut it as a team whole. Evan Fournier, 39 minutes and 10 points. Tristan Thompson, 25 minutes, 10 rebounds, but only 4 points. I don't really care about his points. I'm more concerned about his rebounds. Obviously, maybe getting some offensive boards and going up with putbacks would definitely be extremely beneficial, something that we see Rob Williams do a lot. And speaking of the Time Lord, 23 minutes, 11 points, 9 rebounds there. Kemba Walker, 27 minutes, 15 points. Marcus Smart, 40 minutes, 17 points. Aaron Nesmith was a nice little surprise there, 17 minutes and 5 points. Peyton Pritchard, 7 minutes, no points there. And Jabari Parker, someone I want to talk about, he got 22 minutes, 9 points, 4 boards. Absolutely pleasant surprise by Jabari Parker. And I say that with the connotation that he was the number 2 overall pick in the draft. I don't know, was it 20? Let me look it up real quick. Jabari Parker. Let's see. He was the number 2 pick in 2014. Yeah. So what can we expect from him moving forward? Now, keep in mind the Celtics did sign him to a 2-year deal towards the end of this season. So we do have him for the remainder of this year and also next year. So keep that in mind. But it's nice to see him coming off the bench and supplying a little spark plug. Honestly, I mean, he was the number 1 recruit going to Duke. the number 2 overall pick in the draft 7 years ago, he still has the talent. He still has the potential. He's still relatively young. I mean, he's 26 years old. Is he a bust? Sure. But for us, the Celtics, I mean, we don't need him to be that number 2 overall pick. We don't need him to be the franchise face. We just need him to be a reliable role player that can come off the bench, spot start if needed, and anything more than that is just a bonus. And right now, what he's giving us is pleasantly surprising. And obviously, there's still room to grow, but we're going to take what we can with this guy because, quite frankly, I've been harping about this the entire season. The Celtics bench sucks. I'm just going to be honest with you. It blows. Grant Williams, no minutes this game. Tremont Waters, no minutes this game. Peyton Pritchard, who actually had a really good start of the season, kind of faded towards the end of the season. 7 minutes, no points like I mentioned. Aaron Nesmith has been all over the chart, really, but it was good to see him get some playing time for sure. And then Jabari Parker coming off the bench as well. Absolutely fantastic, I think, addition for the Celtics, and he's someone that they needed. A versatile wing player that can kind of play big, can score relatively decently, right? And I also mentioned that they need veteran help, and though he's not a veteran, but at least they were able to chalk 2 pieces up because they got Evan Fournier being the shooter and the scorer. Then they got Jabari Parker to help with the bench depth, and they just missing that veteran piece, and that's something that's really gonna hinder the Celtics this year. 22 points from Tatum, 10 from Fournier, 15 from Kemba. You're not going to win. You're simply not going to win. I mean, Durant 32, Kyrie 29, and James Harden off night with 21 points. You're just not. And then, your old friend Jeff Green, he got 3 points in 27 minutes. But this is a tough one to swallow because you had the lead for a lot of the game. And if you were able to squeeze one out and sneak a win out, imagine how detrimental that would have been to this series. How crucial just a Game 1 victory would have been, setting the tone right for your locker room, your team, your players, your fans, that, hey, we could do this. Although it's not very realistic, but, hey, we're able to squeeze one out in Brooklyn. Anything might be possible here. But obviously, as we all know, Celtics did end up losing 104-93. And as we look ahead to Game 2 tomorrow, at 7, tip-off at 7, 7:30 tip-off tomorrow. Brooklyn does lead 1-0, like I said. Game will be in Brooklyn, of course. What do I expect? Well, I expect a rebound game from Jason Tatum, quite frankly. 41 minutes and only 22 points, I think, is an off night for him. If the Celtics have any shot in winning a game or two, and if you want to be a green teamer and say the series, Tatum's going to have to score 30 every night. Minimum. Whatever the highest total is for the Nets, obviously Game 1 was 32 by Durant, Tatum's going to have to match that. So say James Harden drops 40, Tatum's going to have to drop 40. You have to even that out. Then you're going to need Kemba Walker, 27 minutes and 15 points. Not enough. You're going to need upper 20s from Kemba as well. 30s would be nice. They would kind of tilt the edge a little in your favor. Evan Fournier is going to have to do 20 himself, and Marcus Smart's going to have to play lockdown defense probably on all 3 of them throughout the entirety of Game 2 if they want any chance to win Game 2. And like I mentioned, if they go down 0-2 in the series in the first 2 games, you can probably just chalk it up as a loss for the Celtics and a win for the Brooklyn Nets, who are one of, if not the favorites out of the East, and one of, if not the favorite to win the NBA championship. And speaking of which, if they don't win the championship, it'll be a disappointing season for the Brooklyn Nets, their fan base, their teams, because they have a team to win right now. Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, James Harden, Blake Griffin. They did have LaMarcus Aldridge, though, before he retired with his heart condition. Jeff Green, Joe Harris even. So they have great players on their team. Blake Griffin's probably washed up, but still serviceable, still a name. And he can pop off any second with a momentum-shifting dunk if he wants. And you just don't have any of that. And although Blake Griffin does not have great postseason success, he has experience. So from his time with the Clippers That accounts for something. Jeff Green, his time with the Cavaliers, that's playoff experience. It just sucks. It just sucks because looking back at that Brooklyn Nets Celtics trade 7 years ago, 8 years ago, whenever it was now, you should probably still been rebuilding, maybe starting to turn the page now. But instead, they made the playoffs, I think, not the year after the trade. Or maybe, the 2 years after the trade, they made the playoffs. The 8th seed got swept by the Cavaliers, whatever. And then little do we know it, they trade for Isaiah Thomas. They're an underdog. They're a fun team to watch. They got a bunch of these role players playing big-time minutes, making big-time shots, winning big games. Next thing you know, they're in the Eastern Conference Finals against the Cavaliers. And they're a great Cinderella story. But ever since then, like 2016, 2017, the expectations for the Celtics have been through the roof. And deservingly so, because they are the Boston Celtics. They are one of the most historic franchises, and not just basketball, but in sports. And although the Celtics had some good early success in Brad Stevens' career with the Celtics, then you also bring in Jaylen Brown, you bring in Jason Tatum, and they start to endure that early career success, making it to the Eastern Conference Finals against LeBron and the Cavs, going to Game 7, and making the Eastern Conference Finals 3 of the past 4 seasons, including last year, Now you're at this point, it's just like, we're going backwards. Like, we went from 0 all the way up to 100, and now we're going backwards before we even won a championship. It's just frustrating, disappointing, because ample times Danny Ainge has had the opportunity to move players, move draft picks, to bring in better players, to help the roster, such as this year, such as last year, and he just doesn't capitalize, and that has now put you in a position that you have Grant Williams, Tremont Waters, Peyton Pritchard, Aaron Nesmith, Romeo Langford, Semi Ojeleye, and Taco Fall was a undrafted free agent, so he doesn't count. But all those young guys that aren't getting minutes. Oh, and then you had the RJ Hunters of the world as well that aren't even on your team anymore. It's like, yes, having all these first round, all these second round picks are nice. And I've gone through it. I've gone through the whole list before on Murph's Boston Sports Talk. But at some point, you have to cash those in, because at some point, you're going to turn out like the 2020 and the 2021 Boston Celtics, having Grant Williams, Tremont Waters, Peyton Pritchard, Aaron Nesmith, Semi Ojeleye, Romeo Langford, Carson Edwards even, I forgot about him, just all sitting on your bench. Meanwhile, those spots can be utilized by veteran role players, maybe some shooters, a rim protector, a versatile wing like a Jabari Parker, so I'll give him that one. Tristan Thompson being, that veteran big man, I'll give him that one. It's just like, as much as I love the Boston Celtics, and as much as I want them to go out, prove us all wrong, beat the Brooklyn Nets, 7 games in Brooklyn, it's just not going to happen. They'll be lucky to win 1 game, if I'm going to be honest with you, and that 1 game may be in Boston. Actually, it probably will be in Boston, because I don't know if they'll be able to win in Brooklyn. But they did play very well. I don't want to say they played very well. They had times throughout the game that they played very well. They just weren't able to close it. Maybe they can learn from their mistakes, make some adjustments, and go out and win game 2. And then Wednesday's edition of Murph's Boston Sports Talk has an entirely different story to it. But between now and then, we'll just have to wait and see, right? So that is your little Celtics segment right there. Low expectations for Game 2, but I will go over 3 keys for the Celtics to win. I kind of briefly touched about what I expect or what I want, what the Celtics need, but I'll just go over some keys real quick for the Celtics if they want to win Game 2. So, 1, Tatum has to match whoever the Brooklyn Nets high scorer is. I already kind of mentioned that. Kemba Walker is going to have to match the second high scorer for the Brooklyn Nets. Probably even score more than the high scorer for the Brooklyn Nets. Those are 2 right off the bat. 3, you got to play team defense. You have to stop that triple-headed attack. Durant, Irving, Harden. One way or another. Whether it's man-to-man defense, whether it's zone. Could be a 2-3, 3-2, 1-3-1. I don't care. It could be a box and one. I don't care what the zone is. You have to find creative ways to stop this team because otherwise they're just going to, shoot you to death and they're going to run up the scoreboard. And you're lucky that the scoreboard wasn't run up. It's an 11-point game, relatively close game. But when you only score 20 points in the third and in the fourth quarters, 40 in the second half, it's not going to cut it. Not going to cut it against this team. And they only scored 16 in the first. The Nets. They only scored 16 points in the first quarter. You have the potential to stop them on defense. I think you do. Or at least slow them down. I'm not going to say stop. I think that's very strong. But you have the potential to slow them down. You have the potential to have a hot, fiery offense. But you just need all cylinders to click, shift into gears, and outperform your opponent at the right time with no mistakes. So those are my 3 keys for the Celtics to potentially win or at least compete and give the Nets a run for their money here in Game 2, which is tomorrow at Brooklyn, 7:30 tip-off. We will have to wait and see who comes out of that one. Like I said, I think it'll be the Nets. I'll be shocked if it's the Celtics. And if it is the Celtics winning, going 1-1 back to Boston, it'll be a certainly interesting conversation that we'll have in the next episode. But that is your Celtics minute right there. Leave your comments, your thoughts down below if you're watching on YouTube, what you think about the Boston Celtics versus the Brooklyn Nets playoff series here in the first round of a best-of-7 in the Eastern Conference. If you're listening on audio-only platforms, please reach out to me on social media at Murphs_Boston ST, where the ST stands for Sports Talk. All right. Something that I've been I don't want to say avoiding, but something that I haven't really touched upon or discussed yet, and I think I'm overdue to do so, and that is, let me get a little closer to the mic here, and that is the Julio Jones rumors to the New England Patriots. Well, let me just say, I thought it was a fantasy, a long shot, a dream, mad and realistic, sure. Actually, not even mad and realistic because it's a pain in the ass to trade for players in that game. But this is something that actually has potential. And that is for the New England Patriots to trade for Atlanta Falcons superstar, Julio Jones. So, let me run over a little bit of contract stuff with Julio Jones just to kind of catch you up to speed. So, Julio Jones signed an extension, a 3-year, $66 million extension with a $25 million signing bonus with $64 million guaranteed at signing. That was in 2019 where he still had 2 years left of his contract. Now that's an additional 3 years from that. So the start of 2021, he'll have 2021, 2022, and 2023 left on his current contract with the Falcons. As part of the extension, there was an $11 million option bonus due in 2020. Through the 2020 season, Jones earned, it doesn't matter how much he earned. All right, the 2021 season will be the first year of Jones' latest contract extension. When he signed the extension in 2019, he still had 2 years. I already mentioned all that. What impact does Jones' deal have on Falcons cap? Now, I kind of mentioned this during the whole, the pre-draft conversations for the Falcons, while they had the number 4 pick. They didn't have enough salary to even sign their newly drafted players for that year. So moving Julio Jones before the draft would have made sense, but also on the other hand, it would not have made sense. Moving Julio Jones would have only given them more draft capital for future years at that time. It would have helped them be able to move some pieces around for the 2020 draft. However, in terms of the financial status, it would have made 0 sense. As it stands on May 20th, it's now 24th, so this article's from a couple days ago. That's okay. Wait, when is this article from? Okay, yeah, it was from a couple days ago. Okay, anyways, it doesn't matter. As it stands on May 20th, Jones' contract is due to count for $23.1 million against the Falcons salary cap. Guaranteed salary makes up $15.3 million, while $5 is prorated signing bonus and $2.75 million is the prorated option. Excuse that car horn that you heard in the background. I don't know, someone across the street's being stupid, whatever. So I just had to pause it, figure things out real quick. Anyways, we are back to it. Let's see, where did I leave off? Okay, what options do the Falcons have with Jones's contract? The structure of Jones's contract and the impact it would have on their salary cap severely limits the Falcons' option. If the Falcons were to release Jones ahead of June 1st, a further $17.5 million would accelerate onto the salary cap. In that unlikely event, Jones's contract would count for $40.6 million against the Falcons' salary cap in 2021. This is why the Falcons were not going to trade him prior to June 1st, although there was a lot of speculations that they could. $40.6 million in dead money when the salary cap is, I believe, at 179, 180, 181. Let me look it up. 2021 NFL salary cap, because it plateaued because of COVID. $182.5 million. So, wow. Okay, let's do some quick math here. 40.6 divided by 182.5 is 0.22246575. So 22% of the Atlanta Falcons' available salary cap would be dead money against them for releasing Julio Jones prior to June 1st. Made zero sense, especially when salary cap is tight. COVID-19 is still a thing. The league wasn't able to make a lot of money, so the salary cap wasn't able to go up like a lot of teams expected. Obviously, a few years ago, they signed these players to these contracts expecting the salary cap to go up. Therefore, they have more money to maneuver and more money to spend. Anyways, back to the article. And speaking of which, this article is from ProFootballNetwork.com. The author is, I want to give him credit. Who's the author? Ben Rolfe. He published this 3 days ago. So Ben Rolfe of ProFootballNetwork.com. Thank you so much for this wonderful article that I'm reading to you, my wonderful listeners. Thank you for downloading, listening, and enjoying. As always, you guys are the best. Anyways, back to the article. However, the Falcons could limit the dead money in 2021 by releasing Jones as a post-June 1st transaction. Doing so would stop the remaining $10 million in prorated signing bonus and $5.5 million in prorated option bonus accelerating onto the cap in 2021. The Falcons would have to account for the $2 million in guaranteed salary on Jones' contract in 2022. Therefore, releasing Jones post-June 1 would leave the Falcons with $25.1 million in dead money. They would then have the remaining $15.5 million in dead money on their salary cap in 2022. So the dead money is the same, whether it's 40.6 in 2021 or if it's broken up into 2 years, 21 and 22. It's just the date. If it's before June 1st, it's this much. If it's after, it's this much over 2 years. I hate how contracts are like that. I wish it was so much more simple. Hey, you have this much on your contract. This was your signing. But even the whole signing bonus thing, I get it. I understand it. It's smart, but I just think it's stupid because it complicates things so much. How much is that player worth? Okay, we can fit him into our book, our checkbook. Let's go get a deal done. So the money, 40.6 is how much there would be in dead money. If it's before, it is 40.6 in 21. If it's after June 1st, it is 25.1 in 21, and then it's 15.5 in 2022. So the numerical amount does not change regardless of the date. It just depends. The only difference is going to be 1 year or 2 years for the dead money to be broken up. What would happen if the Falcons traded Jones and his contract? Now, this is where it gets spicy because this is where the Patriots, all those rumors start to come in. Once again, the key for the Falcons, if they were to trade Jones, would be the timing. Trading him before June 1st would save the Falcons no salary cap in 2021. While they would save $15.3 million in guaranteed salary, they would have $15.5 million in prorated money accelerate onto the cap. The net effect would be $200,000 increase in his salary cap number to 23.25. Yet a post-June 1 trade would significantly alter the look of Jones's contract to the Falcons' salary cap. Doing so would see the Falcons clear the $15.3 million in guaranteed salary. That would leave just $7.75 million in dead money on the Falcons' salary cap in 2021. The issue is that the Falcons would have to account for $15.5 million in dead money in 2022. With the Falcons strapped with the salary cap, this saving $15.3 million would be a huge benefit. So there's a massive difference. Another reason why I hate the complicated contract structure. If they release him, it's broken up this way. If it's before this date, it's broken up that way. If it's after, it's broken up this way. But if they trade him before this date, it's like this. And if they trade him after this date, it's like that. It's just, oh my goodness. Gosh. Whatever. Okay. So, how will Jones' contract shape up for the team acquiring him? A trade for Jones could be appealing for the team acquiring him. By making the trade, the team would take on Jones' $15.3 million salary in 2021 and $2 million in guaranteed 2022 salary. If that team were to release Jones ahead of 2022, they would be left with $2 million in dead money, having paid him $17.3 million on a one-year contract. If the team acquiring Jones were to keep him beyond the 2021 season, they would have plenty of options. Jones is due to have a salary of $11.5 million in both 2022 and 2023. Thus, trading for Jones would see a team signing up for a 3-year, $38.3 million contract. While that appears as excellent value, it would be a surprise not to see Jones request a new contract ahead of those seasons. If so, that would significantly increase the salary cap cost of acquiring Jones and his contract. So, a lot to break down there. I honestly think Julio Jones will get traded. Whether it's to the Patriots or not, that's still up for discussion and yet to be foreseen. Regardless what team Jones goes to, his contract in 2021 will be 15.3, which is, that whole dead money thing kind of, getting rolled over. I'm not going into the numbers again, but okay, so the dead money in 2022 would be 15.5 if they release him before June 1st, whatever. So that money is going to get switched over to 2021 for his contract number minus $200,000 because of the whole whatever prorated shit. Okay. And then his salary, oh my God, I hate when their ads pop up and it just moves the screen. Stop moving the damn screen. And then Julio Jones' remaining contract would be $11.5 million in both 22 and 23. So you add all that up, it would be $38.3 million for a 3-year contract, essentially, for Julio Jones. Now, when healthy, Julio Jones is a top 3 wide receiver in the league. You can argue the other two. You could say Devontae Adams, DeAndre Hopkins, Julio Jones even, Michael Thomas, whatever. Julio Jones is always in that conversation for top 3. When healthy, obviously, and before this year, he was relatively healthy his whole career. Led the league in receiving yards. I'm not going to go to all his stats, but I want to give you a good picture of what kind of player the Patriots could be getting into. Besides last year, relatively healthy, 14, 15, 16 game staple throughout his whole career, with the exception of last year, which helped the ascension of ascension of Calvin Ridley this year to be one of probably a top 10, maybe a top 5 wide receiver, not only in fantasy, but in the actual league itself. But with only making $11.5 million in 22 and 23, Julio Jones could look to restructure, get a new extension of sorts to help, get him paid more. Though he is on the wrong side of 30, and if we just look up his age real quick, I believe he's 32. Yeah, he's 32, on the wrong side of 30, but he's still at the top of his game. And if he comes back healthy this year and he plays like he's had before, paying him more than 11.5 should not be a problem. Julio Jones is a completely freak of nature, different animal, different wide receiver than your typical, your typical NFL wide receiver. He's a tank. He's a superstar. He's a beast, and he is a generational talent. So, where do the Patriots fit into all this? Well, it has come out that Julio Jones is interested with playing with Cam Newton for this upcoming season. And quite frankly, believe it or not, it seems like Cam Newton's a very appealing piece, of attraction to bring in players. Now, I have no idea if he had any impact on bringing in the free agents that the Patriots were able to bring in this year. But to bring in Julio Jones, I mean, sure, I'll definitely take that. And obviously, it seems like going into the season, Cam Newton will be the starting quarterback. Whether Mac Jones replaces him midway, beats him in training camp, that is yet to be foreseen. But that's a conversation for a whole nother day, a whole nother episode. So let's just keep talking about Julio Jones. Moving to a different article on CBSSports.com, written by Patrick Walker from 22 hours ago at the time of recording, so very recent, fresh article. The team didn't draft a receiver, referring to the Patriots, until the 7th round this year, namely Trey Nixon, and lost Julian Edelman to retirement. The signing of both Kendrick Bourne and Nelson Aguilar in free agency helped put the team in a better position than they were in 2020. But respectively speaking, you can roll both of them into one and toss in another receiver on the Patriots roster, and you'd still fall short of having created what makes Julio Jones arguably the best wideout in the entire league. They pulled a similar move when they traded for Hall of Fame receiver Randy Moss in 2007, and I'm not going to talk about what follows that in referring to a Super Bowl loss. Anyways, Julio Jones, like I've mentioned, a sensational talent. Absolutely incredible player. And later in the article, it goes on to say, as far for space to fit in Jones in, the Patriots aren't in a bad spot. Currently, owners have just over $15 million in room to begin absorbing his deal. Of his total $23.05 million in cap for 2021, only $15.3 is his guaranteed salary, with the remainder being prorated signing bonus that's already been paid out in Atlanta, which I already talked about, which means the Patriots wouldn't be on the hook for it. So in essence, the Patriots could easily take on Jones' salary with a few tweaks. Examples, restructure, which would probably be ideal for both the team and Julio, but also potentially player releases as well. I don't know what the roster looks like just yet, in terms of, going into training camp and such, because you're allowed to have like 90 players on your team, although you're only paying for the top 53 of them. But yeah, bring it in. And sorry about that noise, you hear it's me moving my mouse around. Julio Jones to New England Patriots is something very realistic. It's very possible. Could we see it happen? Absolutely. And we're going to have to wait another week before anything potentially happens. And a lot of these rumors about Julio Jones being traded are heating up, and the Patriots seem, a lot of other, national reports saying the Patriots are on the top of that list. Julio Jones is wanting to go to New England to play with Cam Newton, and I am all on board. Julio Jones would ascend the New England Patriots to arguably the favorites in the AFC. I'm going to say it. Granted, Cam Newton can throw the ball. Because if he can't throw the ball, if he throws the ball or lack thereof, like he did in 2020, there's no point in having Julio Jones or, Hunter Henry or Jonnu Smith on your team. There's no point. But if Cam Newton's able to kind of, maybe get that second win, maybe show a little MVP form, or maybe, early 2017 before he got injured form, or was it 2018? I forget what year he kind of showed out a little bit after one of his previous injuries. Then we're really cooking with something. Because Cam Newton, on a one-year deal, he's actually going to be getting paid this year. Could have a show-out year. Is he the future of the Patriots? No, because they have Mac Jones. So him being on a one-year, $14 million deal, he could be looking to get a nice little payday at the end of this year. So he's going to want to show out and ball out himself. A lot of rumors say that Cam Newton's been throwing the ball a lot this offseason. His ball looks tight. His ball looks good and fast. I'm going to be really interested to see what Cam Newton's able to do with or without Julio Jones. But, man, if he's able to throw the ball, you bring in Julio Jones, the moves you made over this offseason, the defense getting back on track. You still have Bill Belichick, the greatest coach of all time. Watch out, Patrick Mahomes. Watch out. Now, obviously, I'm not going to sit here and compare and contrast who's the better team in the AFC with all these hypotheticals between the Patriots and what we know about the Chiefs, but that's still a conversation to be had. A lot of people will still say the Chiefs, and respectively so. But, you can't discount the Patriots, the moves that they've made, and the potential that this team has for the 2021 season. I am looking forward to it immensely, and I cannot wait to see. I hope Julio Jones gets traded on June 1st and just like, boom, day shifts over to June 1st. Patriots have traded for Julio Jones. Here is the breakdown. And what kind of trade could we see? Well, he's 32 years old, coming off an injury, but he's still at the top of his game. I mean, I think, right? I think he's still at the top of his game. What do you give up, though? What do you give up? I mean, okay, let's see. Your quarterback room is Cam Newton, Mac Jones. You just brought back Brian Hoyer, and you have Jarrett Stidham. Okay, their starting quarterback is Matt Ryan. So maybe, okay, obviously this is, LOL, but maybe throwing Jarrett Stidham, serve as the backup. Matt Schaub's getting older himself. Jarrett Stidham could be a potential replacement for Matt Ryan. Maybe, I don't know. I'm just trying to spitball ideas, throwing shit on the wall, hope it sticks, right? You could throw in N'Keal Harry, someone that's potentially busted for you, but, maybe a change of scenery, put a young receiver down in Atlanta with Calvin Ridley, with Russell Gage, and you just brought in Kyle Pitts, 4th overall pick, experienced quarterback like Matt Ryan. Maybe he can kind of help, rejuvenate N'Keal Harry's career. So that would be an appealing piece for the Falcons. Obviously draft picks, but how far up the totem pole do you go? Do you try to look to trade a third? Would the Falcons even take that? I mean, there's a lot of money to be dealt, so they're really looking to move Julio Jones. So would they just settle for a third? But would another team, just be like, screw it, 1st round pick, here you go, we'll take all the money? Potentially, I don't know. Realistically, I could see, or what I'd be comfortable with the Patriots doing is N'Keal Harry, a 2nd round pick this year, and part of my phone buzzing. 2nd round pick this year and maybe a 2nd round pick next year. I think that's fair. I think that's absolutely fair. On both sides, Falcons move Julio Jones. They, release the money. They get some assets back in terms of a young, receiver with a lot of potential still. And then you get 2 2nd round draft picks from the Patriots. Obviously, you can flip them and tumble them for another 1st or, higher up, whatever. We're not going to get into that right now. But that's what I'd be comfortable with trading. If it's just a 1st round pick in either 21 or 22, I think I'd be okay with that as well. But just the 1st round pick in N'Keal Harry. Could the deal get done for more or less? Absolutely. But we're just going to have to wait and see what the Falcons want and what the Patriots are willing to give up. But you can't count out other teams in the league. San Francisco 49ers. I'm hearing rumors that the Seattle Seahawks might even be interested in him. The Denver Broncos even. I don't know why. But teams only with the salary cap can take on Julio Jones. And it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out for sure. But I'm hoping and praying that he comes to New England because the Patriots desperately need that kind of weapon. They haven't had that kind of weapon since Randy Moss that I previously mentioned. So let me know what you think down below in the comments or reach out to me on social media at Murphs_BostonST, where the ST stands for Sports Talk. Let me know if you want Julio Jones, what you're willing or comfortable giving up for Julio Jones, and do you think it is possible that the Patriots even trade for Julio Jones? Whew. That was a good conversation right there. That was a good conversation right there that I'm glad that we had. And before we wrap things up really quickly, I do kind of want to talk about the Red Sox really quickly. They lost 6-2 to the Philadelphia Phillies last night in Philly. Nothing really notable. Only got 4 hits. They scored 2 runs late in the 8th and the 9th inning, 1 in each. Phillies jumped out ahead with a 4-run first. Then the pitching was able to shut them down relatively well until the 8th inning where they got 2 additional runs. Eduardo Rodriguez just got rocked in the first inning, was still able to throw 4 flat innings. And then Phillips Valdez gave up another 2 in the 8th inning. Bullpen looked good for Matt Andriese going 2 shutout. Sawamura 1 shutout as well. But the Phillies were just able to get ahead of you. Zach Wheeler really didn't do anything special. 7 1/3 going. I mean, it almost seems like a complete game in present day baseball. But 7 1/3, 3 hits, 1 earned, 1 walk, and 12 strikeouts. for him. Excellent performance. Love to see pitchers go into the 8th inning, which you never see anymore. But it was awesome to see him do that. If a pitcher can go 7 innings, hallelujah. Holy smokes. That's like old school nowadays. That's throwbacks. Man, I love seeing starting pitchers go deep into games. But with that loss to Philadelphia, you have lost sole possession of first place in the American League East. Yes, you have. You are now officially tied with the Tampa Bay Rays at 29-19. The New York Yankees are only half a game behind you. So the division is starting to shape out. It's starting to get tough. Blue Jays still 4.5 back, and Orioles are starting to fade. They're 11 games out. But this is what we expected going into this year. I mean, the Yankees were the... No, I'm sorry, not the Yankees. The Rays were the reigning division champs. They traded Blake Snell, but they still have, a lot of good pieces left. A lot of people were low on them this year. I think I was relatively lower on them, but they're still a fantastic team. The Yankees have a lot of star talent on their team, so them sucking early was a little unprecedented, and you couldn't have expected that for all too long. They're 8-2 in their last 10 games. The Rays are 10-0 in their last 10 games. Holy smokes. And then the Red Sox are 7-3. So they're not sucking themselves. They're playing, baseball, and they're winning games. But sheesh, when a team is 10-0 in their last 10 and another team is 8-2, that's tough to keep up with. And so far, the Red Sox have relatively done a good job. It's just those 3 losses in the past 10 games. The Rays have just been winning. And then, Yankees are just kind of, creeping up. But it is an excellent divisional race so far. We absolutely expected it. I expected a decent amount from the Blue Jays as well, and they're kind of sucking and fading a little bit, but they're holding their own. You can't blame them. I mean, no one really expected them to win the division. I think maybe I kind of jumped on the bandwagon there, but no one really expected this from the Red Sox this year, or at least realistic expectations from the Red Sox. So just looking ahead real quick, the Red Sox are off today. They'll be back at Fenway Park for a brief 2-game stint with the Atlanta Braves, formerly the Boston Braves. And I mention that because if you go onto the YouTube channel on Thursday, in between Wednesday and Friday's episodes of Murph's Boston Sports Talk, I will be doing the history of old New England teams, where I will be covering the Boston Braves, where they were the gem of Boston. Then the Red Sox rose in stardom and popularity, ultimately ousting the Boston Braves to Milwaukee and then to Atlanta. They are currently the longest continuous professional sports team in history, the Braves organization. So welcoming back our brother team per se, our National League counterpart, is definitely welcoming. So 2-game series with the Braves starting tomorrow, first pitch at 7:10. Let's see. Oh, and then, the second game on Wednesday, of course. And then the Marlins come into town for 3 games for a 3-game weekend series. And then off to Houston for 4. And then to New York for 3. Huge games coming up right there towards the end of the month and the beginning of June. Absolutely massive games. The Atlanta Braves have not performed as I thought that they would, but they are slowly creeping back up in the division. They are only a game and a half behind the New York Mets, but that division is also close across the board, 2.5 games out for the Nationals, who are in last place of that division. So that just shows you how close that division is over there. But yeah, Braves, huge series. The Marlins, surprisingly a huge series. And then obviously when you go to Houston and New York, that could be a pivotal series here in the season as we approach the summer and roughly a third of the way through the season. But that is your Red Sox minute right there. Hopefully you enjoyed that as we look ahead to the future and to see how the division is shaping out, because you did have a little lead in the division, but it's kind of faded away now due to the excellent performance from the Tampa Bay Rays and the bounce back month of May pretty much for the New York Yankees. But regardless of what we talked about today in today's episode, please reach out to me on social media or comment down below with your thoughts, your opinions, your comments about anything we talked about. I would love to hear it. Bruins moving on to the second round. Absolutely hyped about that. It was fun to talk about it last night when the game just happened, but have it be part of today's episode. I just wanted to give you my thoughts like right away, my initial reactions. And I really enjoyed doing that. Hopefully you did too, because it was just all raw emotion from me. And I'm really excited that the Bruins were able to advance and take care of business in Game 5 in the nation's capital against the Washington Capitals. Who will the Bruins face in the second round? We will have to wait and see. It is between the Islanders and the Penguins, who play tonight. Looking forward to it. Games in Pittsburgh. I'll be tuning in for sure. But thank you so much for joining me for Monday's edition of Murph's Boston Sports Talk. Hopefully your weekend was fantastic. Hopefully your week is going to be a great one. Enjoy the weather. It was a beautiful weekend that we just had. Weather is a little chilly right now here in Rhode Island, but we're going to have great weather all week for sure. Maybe a little bit of rain towards the end of it. But enjoy a couple of days between now and hump day. Wednesday's edition of Murph's Boston Sports Talk. But between now and then, you know that I love you, and you know that I will always see ya.